Okay, boys, let's predict the conference finals of the NBA playoffs. We have two more matchups before we get to the finals. We have the Timberwolves and the Thunder out in the West, and then we have in the East the Indiana Pacers and the New York Knicks. I'm looking forward to both of these matchups, honestly. I feel like they're really exciting matchups to watch in their own regard. I think Knicks and Pacers, obviously, there's a rivalry there. There's been a history between those teams, um, dating back to as soon as last year in the second round, where the Pacers beat the Knicks in seven, I believe it was 7 or 6. Very interesting, thrilling series to watch, though. I thought New York was going to win it last year. They ended up barely losing. So I think we're in for a treat with the Knicks and Pacers. And then out in the West, we have the Thunder and the Timberwolves. The Thunder, who just beat the Nuggets in 7 games, who was the best team in the NBA last year, taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves, who have looked like the most dominant team in these playoffs so far. I will say they had a bad game against Golden State. They lost 1 game to LA, but they only lost 1 game in each of those series. Haven't lost any more than that. So that will be really interesting. The Thunder are still the title favorites, I believe, so I believe they're favored to win this matchup. I also believe the Pacers are, from what I've seen, picked to win this matchup against the Knicks. I could be wrong there. So without rambling on any longer, let's get right into the predictions. I'm going to start with the Eastern Conference Finals because we knew this matchup would happen first, with the Knicks beating the Celtics in 6, and then the Pacers beating the Cavs in 5, which is really shocking. And that's what I'm going to start off. I'm going to start off with the Pacers because at the beginning of the playoffs, I made a video putting every NBA team, every playoff team into a tier list. I put the Pacers in, I don't remember what the tier was, but it was basically the tier that I didn't think they would make it past the second round. And boy, was I wrong. They beat the Bucks very quickly in 5. I thought they would win in like 7. I thought that'd be a tight contest. And then they go on to beat the Cavs, who I thought the Cavs were going to beat them in 7. I thought that would be a really close series. Granted, in the Bucks series, they obviously didn't have Lillard, and when he came back, he went out almost immediately. He wasn't himself. And there were some really close games in that series that the Bucks honestly should have won, especially the Game 5, where they had just a catastrophic ending to that game. I was watching it live. So yeah, they kind of, I guess you say, lucked out there, but they played well. And then against the Cavs dealt with injuries in the first 2 games without Garland and Mobley in Game 2, I believe. And they just never really got back right off the right foot after that. So Pacers have surprised me. Have they had a cakewalk? I wouldn't say that. They beat the Cavs, who were a really good team, I thought. I don't think the Cavs necessarily played their best. Their shooting was a little off. I think their defense could have been better. But the Pacers, credit to them, they pushed the Cavs in almost every game, it seemed like, to play at their own pace, which is fast all around. They have a bunch of guys. They're a really deep team. I dare say deeper than the Thunder. At least they play that way. And so the Pacers are a really interesting team. And what's really interesting about this matchup against the Knicks, well, actually, before I get to that, so I'm just going to start off by saying I was wrong about the Pacers. I didn't think they would get to the conference finals. I thought the most they would get to is the second round, but obviously they're here. And like I said, a lot of people think they'll beat the Knicks. And going to the Knicks, before I get into why this matchup is so interesting, I think for the Knicks, you can go back into the video and watch it. I was right about the Knicks. I said the Knicks, they were in my top tier. There were only 4 teams in my top tier. I believe it was the Knicks, the Celtics, the Clippers, and the Timberwolves. Obviously, Celtics and Clippers I wasn't spot on with, but Knicks, I was really high on the Knicks. And everyone would give me flack for that. In the comment section, my friends, they would say my 2 bad takes were the Clippers and the Knicks. Everyone was saying I was too high on them. And I'm telling you, I told y'all. I think the Knicks are really good. If only they had a little more depth, they would be really, really good. Yes, they can be streaky, I feel like. Yes, they can get lucky like they did against the Celtics in Game 1 and 2. But, again, credit to them. They kept fighting in those games, and they clawed back. And when it was close in the fourth quarter, they pulled out the win. in both of those games against the defending champs. So credit to the Knicks. They're really good. Their starting five is really good. I like their chemistry. I think what they unlocked in the Celtics series, which was interesting, is Mitchell Robinson. I feel like Mitchell Robinson can be a really strong X factor. And then Deuce McBride is the other guy they come off the bench. That's really the only guys they play. Cameron Payne sometimes comes off the bench. I know they have PJ Tucker, but he hasn't played. I haven't seen him once. So this is a really interesting matchup because the Knicks don't play a lot of guys. They rely heavily on their five guys, their starting five. And the Pacers, on the flip side, go to a lot of guys. I think in like a couple of games against the Cavs, they played a 10-man rotation. Like, they are a deep team. Yes, they have the starters like Halliburton, Turner, Siakam. They got Mathurin. They got T.J. McConnell. They got Obi Toppin. They have a lot of guys on that team. Andrew Nembhard. They're really good. And they're really good all around. And they play at a pace that makes you like adjust to their pace and play their game. Do I think they'll do that to the Knicks? I kind of do. But I'm sticking with my original thought on the Knicks. I thought the Knicks were one of the better teams going into these playoffs. I'm riding out with the Knicks. I'm going against the critics. I'm saying the Knicks will win this in 7. I think it will be a very tight contest. I wouldn't be surprised, I should rather say, that if the Pacers come out and beat the Knicks in one of the first 2 games at Madison Square Garden. And just a little side note, that place is going to be rocking. I'm so looking forward to this matchup. Probably more so than the Thunder and Timberwolves matchup, which is kind of crazy because that is a very crazy good matchup. But Madison Square Garden, biggest games played there in years, decades. It should be really interesting. I think I'm picking the Knicks only because of X factors like I think Mitchell Robinson can really unlock their full potential, getting offensive rebounds. Not even in these some of these games against the Celtics, he didn't even have a great stat line. He would have like 1.3 rebounds and like a block, but his presence alone on the offensive glass and on the defensive side is definitely felt. And then I'm also picking them because they have guys like Jalen Brunson, who is probably the best player in this series, and Karl-Anthony Towns. I think Karl-Anthony Towns, when he gets going and Jalen Brunson's doing their thing, they're unstoppable. Pacers, like I said, I think they make this a tough series. I think it goes to 7 games. I really hope it goes at least 6 games. I really hope this is a good series, but I'm sticking with the Knicks. I'm sticking with my early playoff prediction. I'm saying Knicks in 7. Now, going out west, we have the Thunder and Timberwolves. And like I said, I really like this matchup. You have on one hand the betting favorites to win the championship, the team that's been the best team all year. People have questioned their youth and their inexperience, and I dare say you can kind of see it, especially in the last series against the Nuggets. There was game 1, which they completely, I feel like, screwed up at the end of the game when they were up and they were playing the foul game. And it's okay to play the foul game, but they were fouling way too quickly. And in a lot of these games, especially in the Nuggets series, their offense is very hit or miss, it looked like. Their defense has been on point for most of these playoffs, but their offense has been very up and down. And in Game 7, yeah, they pulled away against the Nuggets. I feel like it was a lot of transition. It was played off of their defense, which is playing really well. So I still don't trust the Thunder. And it's not necessarily because they're like young, but because like most of these guys were here last year against the Mavericks in round 2 in the playoffs, but they're very streaky on offense. They get good looks, but they just don't hit them sometimes. And when Jalen Williams is not on, they're just not that good. And Jalen Williams can be on or off on any given night. They just finished, I should say, a very tough series against the Nuggets. They're playing, I believe, tonight. I believe they're the first game. It'll be in OKC, but again, they just finished a 7-game series. Timberwolves have had rest. Will that be a disadvantage? Because like the Timberwolves did in round 1, where they beat the Lakers in 5, going into round 2 facing the Warriors, the Warriors who just came off a 7-game series, went into Minnesota and completely annihilated them. For some reason, I trust Minnesota on the road better. I don't know if that's a stat, like they're really good on the road, but I feel like they play really well on the road. So I think this game one will be very interesting and very telling of how the series goes. Because both teams play a big man lineup from time to time. I think the Thunder have been starting mostly with Holmgren and Hardenstein as the 4 and 5, and then the Timberwolves, they got Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert, but then they also have Naz Reid, who is basically like a center who plays power forward sometimes with Rudy Gobert. I think the Thunder have more depth, but I trust Minnesota's bench more in Dante DiVincenzo, Naz Reid, and Nikhil Walker-Alexander, who, by the way, is cousins with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I didn't even know that, but that's another cool storyline for this series. I think the Timberwolves have the better player overall in Anthony Edwards. And I say that because I feel like SGA has not played that well in these playoffs when he's not getting the fouls, when his shots aren't necessarily falling. He played a really good Game 7, give him credit. But I think Anthony Edwards will be the best player in the series. And I feel like I definitely trust Julius Randle more than Jalen Williams in this series. So I'm going to take the Timberwolves. And again, I'm going to say in 7. I almost want to say in 6 for the Timberwolves. But I'm going to say 7 to play it safe. Hedge my bet a little bit. I'm picking the T-Wolves. Like I said, I've been high on them all year. In that video, I also said the Timberwolves were in the top tier of can definitely win the finals. I had the Thunder in a tier below just because, again, I just don't trust them necessarily when it comes down to it. But we'll see how that series goes. I'm really looking forward to both these series and see how they play out. Let me know down below who you think is going to win both series, who you want to win, where I got it right, where I got it wrong. And also, just a little side note to finish off this video, what matchup do you want to see in the finals? Personally, it's not because I'm just picking them. I would love to see a Knicks and Timberwolves matchup. I think a lot of people would because they made that trade with Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, and Cat. And so it looked like it's worked out for both teams so far. And so if they could play in the finals in Madison Square Garden again, it would be just cinema. I would love to see that. Let me know down below what matchups you want to see in these finals, and I'll see you on the next one.